Hello and welcome to Along the Way Life's Journey. I'm your host, Carl Buccellato. Happy to have you back here. It's November 2024. And what a trifecta of a month this has been. Fantastic things occurred this month. We have a national election, which we'll talk about in a moment. We had Veterans Day, which celebrated wonderful, wonderful people who served this country. And we have Thanksgiving, a time for traditional history and values. So let's start with the past election. This election was a mandate unlike any that we've seen in recent history. President Trump was reelected to his second term, now the 47th president of the United States. And he promised to bring the nation back to values, bring the nation back to security, bring the nation back to safety, bring the nation back to an economy where people can afford to live and take care of their families as they had in the past. And every bit of that has been accepted by the American people in a mandate. He won not only the Electoral College, he won the popular vote, he swept the Senate and the House of Representatives. So this is the time when none of the naysayers, none of the old rhinos, none of the old liberals can come in the way and stop him. And yet they're trying to already. They're resisting in one way or another. And I'm sure he will prevail because he's a positive, strong leader. And he has assembled a positive, strong team of people to work hard for this country. And let's talk a little bit about Veterans Day before we go too far off afield. Veterans Day was November 11th, and everybody across the country gave tribute to various people who were veterans to put their lives on the line to support this nation and save its nation in times of peril. One of those people received a Congressional Commendation. And I'm proud to say that was my brother Joe, otherwise known as Chaplain Giuseppe Buccellato. And we'll see a little bit of that certificate in a moment. It'll be shown on the screen here. A really proud night for him because he was in front of many, many hundreds of people. A congressman presented him with this award, certified in his name. And I'm sure he felt 11 feet tall. And so he should. All the men and women who served for our nation, who provided so much of themselves. And he still does because he works tirelessly for the veterans as a chaplain. Of course, there's no compensation for that. It's just time and effort that he puts in. So I salute you, my brother Joe. You are indeed a hero in this nation, and I'm so proud of you. So many, many other veterans were honored on that day as well. Now, let's come up to Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, as always, is the fourth Thursday in the month of November. But it wasn't always that way. Thanksgiving began, as you know, with the Pilgrims and with the Wampanoag Indians. The Wampanoag Indians and the Pilgrims settled in Plymouth and had their first Thanksgiving. And many people see these pictures of people, in black and white outfits with big hats and white, very, very white starch collars and things like that, which probably didn't exist because those poor people had weathered through some tough times. And they lost half of their population in the first year that they were there in Plymouth, having been ill prepared for the cold weather. The Mayflower was not supposed to stay in Plymouth. It was supposed to go further south to the Virginias, but was driven offshore and landed in Plymouth. And so they weathered through the winter with no cold weather clothes. They were not prepared. They built ramshackle little shanties to live in. They scratched out a living, and half of the people died in the first year. And as they scratched out a living to try and bring in the spring and summer to try and bring up some crops to live on, it became more and more difficult because they were not familiar with that kind of terrain. And the local Indians felt sorry for them, and they taught them how to plant corn, and they taught them how to fish. And at a particular time at the end of the harvest, they wanted to celebrate. The Pilgrims wanted to celebrate the harvest and the fact that they had survived through, and they wanted to give thanks to God. So they went what was called fowling. They went out looking for birds to eat, and everybody thinks it's turkey, but more than likely it was probably geese and ducks and things of that kind. But the Indians came to the gate, 90 strong, and the Pilgrims were only 50 at the time. Only 50 survived at that point, and they were fearful. But the Indians were peaceful, and they brought with them food, venison and fish and eel and shellfish and homemade beers that the Indians made. And they shared it with the Pilgrims, and they spent 2 days together, both cultures blending together in peace and in harmony. And that's the foundation of Thanksgiving in the United States. As it went further, it became a symbol of thanksgiving and religious appreciation through most of the agrarian people who lived on farms and so forth. And as the nation grew and people grew and cities grew, it became less and less a matter of faith and more a matter of survival and harmony and living together. And the different states celebrated things in different ways. But then came the Civil War. And during that Civil War, there was a great deal of division and harm done to the cultures of the nation. The people in North and South both suffered greatly. And a woman by the name of Sarah Hale, who was the editor of a newspaper, a magazine actually, called The Ladies' Bug or The Ladies' Day, she pushed for a holiday that might unite the country more and more. But the different states were not interested in doing that until Abraham Lincoln recognized that this nation desperately needed healing. And so he did a proclamation declaring that the fourth Thursday of November would be a holiday to celebrate Thanksgiving, to give thanks to God, and hopefully to help the nation heal from its various pains of division, and to bring about harmony and tranquility, and in his word, union, to bring the nation back to a union, one union. And that was helpful in bringing about recognition between the different peoples. It didn't quite make it immediately, but it took some time to do. And over the years, it became a matter of people celebrating this holiday. In 1941, the Congress declared that the fourth Thursday of every of November would be Thanksgiving Day, so that it would be a national holiday where all could celebrate together. And in 1942, President Roosevelt, who had originally wanted to do it the third Thursday in order to help economy, to make a longer Christmas season for shopping and so forth, he was a bright man. But they prevailed in the Congress, and it was the fourth, as declared by Lincoln. And so in 1942, President Roosevelt declared that the fourth Thursday of every November would be a day for people to set aside their time and their work and their struggles and join together in harmony with family and friends and share meals and share camaraderie and to heal the nation, to work together. And that has been the tradition of this nation since that time. And then, of course, Macy's decided, I'm going to run a parade, and it became a big commercial thing, and people enjoy many different aspects of Thanksgiving, including football. It's become a major part of the Thanksgiving holiday for lots of people, not only in their backyards where they play touch football, but on television. So it's a big deal. So here we are in Thanksgiving time. And in a few days, it will be Thanksgiving, November 27th. And this year, we are going to celebrate. The Buccellato family is going to celebrate together. My brother Joe is coming from the West Coast with his wife, Lydia, and my sister-in-law, Lydia, and my wife, Mary Ellen, who you've met on other shows before. If you want to see her again, look at E48 for last year's Thanksgiving message. She delivered a tremendous message on the four freedoms. So they will come together, and we will have dinner together, and both the ladies will be celebrating their birthday. They're both born on the exact same day. And so we're going to be celebrating Thanksgiving, and we're going to be celebrating their birthdays, and we're going to have friends and other relatives with us. And as it turns out, we're going to have 4 or 5 birthdays all around November, around the Thanksgiving time. But those two ladies are on that exact day. And so we're going to be celebrating other people's birthdays. And we will be celebrating birthdays that transgress 70 years of time, from the 1950s right through 2023, when our youngest granddaughter was born. Gianna was born a year ago in November, so it's 2023. And from the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s, and the 1980s, all those people will be celebrating with us for Thanksgiving. And I think that's a tribute to a family that can come together, break bread, share peace and harmony, and give thanks to our God for all the great blessings He's given us this year. And I look forward to this year ahead when President Trump will establish foundations again that are valuable to the American people. He will close the borders. He will bring safety back to this nation. He certainly will work on eliminating a lot of the crime in the streets. He will work on the defense projects so that all of these wars around the world should come to an end. He's a very staunch provider and lover of Israel, so he will support Israel. I'm sure of that, which is exactly what we need. Bible tells us to support Israel. He who loves Israel, God loves. So we will support Israel. And hopefully we will come to a place in this nation. When I look at the election that just took place, and I hear all these terrible things that the press and the opposition said to try and divide us about hatred and anti-Semitism and anti-racial comments and all that nonsense that they were saying about people being Nazis and all that business. Well, I look at the way he won the election. He won in a landslide. People of every denomination voted for him. He was voted in by men and women, whites and black, Hispanic, Asian. He was voted in by Jewish people, Catholics, Protestants, Muslims, Mormons, Amish. Everybody voted for Trump, greater than they ever had in history. And the reason for that is everybody began to realize that we are one nation under God. And we were losing that as a nation. We had an administration that was trying to bring us to a place that nobody in this nation wants to be at. This country has been founded by the Judeo-Christian values, and it's been founded under one nation under God. And for 250 years, it's been the bellwether place for safety, opportunity for everyone in the world. And that's why so many people want to come here. They don't leave here in mass. They come here in mass. And I am, as I've said before, the prodigy of immigrants, and I respect immigrants, and I know this nation should have the influx of new blood and immigrants. But we have to do it legally, we have to do it properly, and to open the gates and bring tens of millions of people in just for political purposes, that's not how it should be done. So it's going to come back to a civilized method of how we do business in this nation. And we're going to look at, I believe, massive change. You're going to see a cleanup of lots of things that have been going wrong. And hopefully they will happen sooner rather than later. We all need it here. We all need to know that this is a nation we can look forward to for future, for stability, for the growth of our families and friends, for our government. And look at what happened. The day after he was elected, the stock market went through the roof. It's the highest numbers ever in history, because everybody knows that he and his administration are going to cause change that will impact the economy. The middle class will begin to feel more secure. People will get better jobs. Prices will come down. It'll take time, but we will have a much stronger country. And I hope that everybody here that's listening to my voice knows that I'm not talking anti or negative any other administration. I'm just talking positive about what's possible. I believe in God, and I believe in the future of this country. And I believe that we have an administration voted into power now who will become official in January that believe in the same things I believe in. I think they believe in our future. I think they believe in the Constitution. I think they believe in God. I think they believe in the sanctity of this nation. I think they believe in the future and safety of our children and families and the economy, which we can provide for everyone. So that's why I voted for them. And I hope you did too. And if you didn't, I hope you take the time to listen to the lesson of Abraham Lincoln, who said that in his declaration, it's a time for us to come together in peace, to put away the swords and build plowshares, to come back to a nation of unity where we work together for the benefit and the future of all of us. Harmony is a wonderful thing to live with. Tranquility is a wonderful thing to live with. It says in the Bible, at the end time, there will be the peaceable kingdom, and the lion will lie down with the lamb, and neither should hurt each other. And I believe that. I do believe that. I think it's time for us to come together as Americans. Forget about all those nonsense things about calling people names and pointing fingers. We're Americans here. There's no Nazis here. There are some people who were interested in changing our way of living and taking us to a place that nobody wanted to be. But thankfully, they have been voted out. Let's make sure that we are diligent to stay attentive to and support the new government and where we're going. And I tell you all, as I tell you every time, this is a great nation, and we are wonderful people. All we have to do is share it with one another. So I hope you look at episode 48, where you will see Mary Ellen telling the story of the four freedoms. Four freedoms were declared by President Roosevelt in his State of the Union address in the early 1940s, 1941. And they are freedom from want, freedom from need, freedom to worship, freedom to free speech. And the reason he did those was because we were coming out of a terrible depression, as we have just experienced, not a depression, but an economic terrible turn down. And people were suffering. And they needed to know that there's a future, there's a hope. And so freedom from want, and freedom from need, and freedom of worship, and freedom of speech, and freedom from fear. So we were going into a very, very terrible war that lasted for 4 years, and a lot of people were killed around the world. And the president knew that we needed to join together. And so a very famous artist by the name of Norman Rockwell created all of those images. And I'm hoping that my producer will put them on the screen so you could see them. And they became commonplace in most homes throughout the United States in the 50s and 60s. And people realized that if we are going to survive as a people, we have to give grace to each of us. Each of us must be respected for how we believe and worship our God. Each of us must be respected for our rights. Each of us must have the right for free speech and not to be controlled. And so I would pray that we recognize those values once again in this country. And maybe there should be a resurgence of those images one more time, because this nation surely needs it at this point. So I tell you, as I tell you every week, everybody has their own story. You have yours. I know you do. You just heard mine. You heard my pride and how I am so happy for my brother Joe and his Congressional Commendation, and my pride in my beautiful wife and her talents and skills, how she delivers messages of peace and hope and faith so beautifully, and my pride in this country. I am a proud American, and I am so happy to be an American. So I ask you once again, you have a story, tell your story. No one can tell it like you can. Write it out. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your family, because when it's too late, it's too late. All that wisdom is gone. Share it with people you know. We need it desperately in this world. And I tell you something else every time. I'm this big blustery guy from Brooklyn. What do I know? I want one thing to be true. Get somebody you know today and give them a big bear hug and tell them that you love them. Tell them you love them. It may be the only time they hear those words. Tell them you love them. And I'm quite sure God does also. And I love you all. God bless you, and God bless this wonderful country of ours. Amen. Bye-bye.